Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. We are starting another series. Uh, this time, we are going to be following the story of Saint 14 and Osiris. And there was a surprising amount to go over here. Both of them have been very prominent figures in the game as of late, but there's a lot of stuff that never was displayed in game that all happened prior to D1 that really has shaped kind of how we got to where we are in a lot of ways. So I'm excited to go through this and really kind of dig into these very legendary figures in the Destiny universe.
Yeah. I was thinking of like introing with like a very bad Saint 14 accent. But I will sustain for now. For
Oh,
now.
don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Oh, you get a voice at all. Yay,
I am
myth.
terrible at Russian accents, so
You got to remember things. You got to remember things with like my bird, my board.
yeah. We'll see. I'll try my best. I might give up halfway through. Who knows?
I'm willing to take bets on this.
We'll see what happens. But no. So, to set the scene here for our episode, um the very first thing that happened with these two chronologically uh is this we're looking at the cosmodrome, and we have walking through the rubble, the cars and broken buildings and all of this. There is a tall, straight-backed man with a white mask obscuring his face, who is accompanied by a little ghost, uh, who is the ghost is very downtrodden, is very unenthusiastic about being here, and these two wander through the wreckage for unknown amount of time, days, weeks, whatever it may be. Uh, and the ghost is following the directions of this masked individual until eventually they happen upon a body. And the masked man, who those of us that played D1 and D2 year one know is the speaker, points out this body to this ghost and tells them that's the one. And this ghost, who we learn is named Geppetto, resurrects the guardian who we come to know as Saint 14. So Saint 14 was very explicitly sought out and chosen by the speaker as much as Geppetto.
Interesting. Normally it's just the ghost, just kind of like I when I think of a resurrection of a guardian, I think of not only our own, but pulled pork, of just like
Mm-hmm.
bippy bopping around for centuries and centuries and centuries, and finally going, Aldrin Sov, that seems like a good one.
Yes. And Geppetto had up until this point been searching for a very long time. This would be the Dark Ages as far as time frame. So post collapse, but it's indicated that Geppetto had been searching for their guardian for quite some time with no success, and was starting to lose hope when the speaker happened upon them and essentially told them, I know who it is you're supposed to be uh, bringing back.
And where's
And
where's this information all come from?
so this all comes to us from technically from a reading out of the Pigeon and the Phoenix lore book. It's a the reading itself has more to it, and I don't know if it's a reading we're going to get to in this episode, but that little bit of it was relevant for how this all starts, because this is a pretty significant departure from the normal way Guardians come about.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So Saint 14 is resurrected, and the very first face he sees, other than his ghost, is the speaker. And the speaker gives Saint direction in saying that Saint will be the best of us, Guardians or humanity or whatever, the us there is. Seemingly having information that no one else does, the speaker seems to indicate that, like, you are a chosen one, you will do great things kind of vibe. Well, Saint 14 tries to live up to that. And one of the very first actions he does as a early guardian, one that has this weight of expectation on his shoulders, is he attempts to assist with the establishing of a colony on Mercury. Only to, unfortunately, have that colony overrun by Fallen from the House of Rain. And it's implied that everybody that is a part of that colony died other than Saint.
Ouch.
Now, this is a little, seems like it's kind of jumping ahead, but it's also kind of not, because we do get to see this happen in game via the Season of the Dawn. Our Guardian travels back in time to this event and is actually the one that is responsible for Saint 14 still being alive past this event, surviving this event. And we also initiate a pretty big personality shift, or maybe not personality, shift in ideals or motivations for Saint.
That we change his reason for being a guardian.
Yeah, we change his perspective. We give him something to strive for.
I love that. Like, that's just that idea that we, coming from the future, who have learned so much about characters like Saint and Osiris and Zavala and Ikora and everyone, all these great guardians that have done great things, have now gone back in time to feed that idea back into Saint, who is, again, at this time, this is a pre Vanguard time. Like, it's the speaker and Saint. There's no
this
Zavala.
Is pre-city.
That's what I'm saying. There's no Zavala. There's no Ikora. There's none of that. This is just a dude and his ghost in the middle of nowhere. In this case, the middle of Mercury. But yeah, like, I love that idea that we VIP 2014, a player guardian, give him that drive that then feeds back into us.
Exactly. So I have the transcript for that mission up.
Ooh, let's go.
So we're gonna
test out that Russian accent, huh?
I am saying sorry now.
Oh no! Don't worry, guys and gals. I'll get it out of him one of these days.
I'll try it. I'm just apologizing in advance for how terrible it'll be. But no. So I have the transcript for the mission. And this again was Season of the Dawn with the sundial. And it goes like this. The Guardian traverses the corridors of time, defeating the Vex that they encounter, eventually happening upon a portal that takes them to Mercury's past. They arrive at Zephyr Station on the perimeter of Mercury. The Guardian finds skiffs deploying fallen units to fight the Vex in the area. Ghost chimes in. This is new. Topographical scan confirms this is Mercury, circa the Dark Age. Incoming signal is an old emergency band. Hold on, let me patch it in. I repeat, this is Saint 14. The Fallen have overrun Zephyr Station. If you can hear this, turn back. Saint, hold your position. We have an armed Guardian incoming. Who is this? Just stay alive, Titan. The Guardian proceeds, defeats the Vex and the Fallen, and comes upon a barrier blocking a nearby corridor. They overcharge it, the barrier disappears, and the Guardian continues their search for Saint 14, who comes on the comms once more. All is lost, Guardian. Get out of here. I'll hold them off for as long as I can. The Fallen cannot be stopped. They do not negotiate. Their bargains are lies. I've watched them burn and pillage whole villages in the Cosmodrome. I've watched dregs eat children. They envy us. Their legends say the Traveler chose them before us. And they will kill, they will torture, they will maim to earn their machine god's favor. The Guardian defeats the Fallen, including a captain. The Guardian continues to search for Saint and eventually finds him hunkered down in a ward of dawn, surrounded on all sides by fallen combatants. And Saint calls out to us once more. The light the Traveler gave to us, it only brings more violence. The Guardian enters the battle and begins to defeat the Fallen that are surrounding Saint. Your strength is a sight to behold. But what has all your strength come to? Our people are dying on Earth. They died here on Zephyr Station. The Fallen launch signal flares into the air, and a skiff deploys a House of Rain walker and a House of Rain servitor alongside reinforcements. The Guardian defeats the servitor. I arrived with a dozen human colonists. Mercury was supposed to be a garden world, but the Vex were here first. They have murdered this planet, and these Fallen of the House of Rain tracked us here all the way from the Cosmodrome. They destroyed us. The Guardian continues the fight alongside Saint, defeating the House of Rain walker, and Saint's Ward of Dawn disappears. We never should have come. Another minute, and they would have eaten my ghost. Fallen are monsters. Ghost now chimes in that the battle's over. Some are. Are you fit to fight, Titan? I was supposed to protect these people. I should be dead. You're stronger than you think. Not strong enough. The Guardian and the Ghost give Perfect Paradox shotgun to Saint 14. What is this? The Perfect Paradox, built by my Guardian out of spare parts and light and sheer will to help you. It is beautiful. Ghost shows Saint 14 a hologram of the future Last City. I probably shouldn't be showing you this, but when has that ever stopped us? This is the last safe city of humanity, hundreds of years from now. During the day, there are children laughing in the streets, and when night falls, the people sleep in their homes, not against the walls, weapon in hand, not like the old days. These are your people, Saint. Their descendants. If you quit the fight, maybe you'll live forever. Your ghost will protect you no matter what, but this last city might never happen. Everything I've ever built has died. I've buried most of the people I've met. I cannot do this. Not anymore. We all make our own choices. Good luck, Titan. And the Guardian is teleported via the sundial back into Mercury's present. And that is where the mission ends.
So, a couple things here. Number one, to remember when this is taking place. The most severe threat in the entire solar system is the Fallen.
Yes. Yep.
So, like, for them to show up with like in mass, like this was a bad day for any given guardian. Um, Number two is the beginning. I say beginning, but it's a perfect paradox that it has no beginning and it has no end.
Right.
The beginning of the perfect paradox. We hand him this shotgun and we say, here's this thing, and show him this holograph of the future, essentially going, this is what you're destined for. This is where your future lies, and like creating this like not quite a moral dilemma for him, but he's very much in this state of like, F this noise. I've buried too many of my own. I don't care to go on. This is not the life I want.
Mm-hmm.
But then for us to kind of give that moment of, hey, it's doom and gloom now, but give it a few hundred years, it'll be all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it very much kind of giving him that driving force, that changing his outlook on life for the better.
Yes. Yeah. So, and it does, although in that moment he's still very self-defeatist.
Oh yeah.
It does spur him on, and it does make him realize that like there is the potential for some form of long-term safety, like that exists. And he just needs to keep going, essentially, and that does settle with him, and he does take that to heart. And so with that vision of the city in his head, he starts wandering Earth. He goes back home to Earth and he starts wandering to help people to strive to make that dream a reality. And we see some of those encounters with different people via the web lore called the Accolade. This is one of those blog posts from Bungie that had like a lore story that it was written out. So this was again called the Accolade. And I'm only going to read some of it because other bits will come into play later. But for now, it goes like this. Jesleen was 9 cycles old. She stared out from the top of a hill across a blasted, ashen landscape. This morning, this had been her village, before the fallen Ketch and its walkers arrived. Those were equally ruined, reduced to a trio of smoldering metallic husks at the center of town. But Jaslyn was alive, and so were her parents, and her neighbors, too, thanks to the Titan who patrolled the region. The light bearer, a giant in an iron suit, watched curiously as her father tried in vain to smoke a fire into existence. Her mother stared in silence at the burning ash that had used to be their home. Together, they were waiting for the rest of the villagers to return with dinner. Local berries, if they were lucky. You should come with me, the light-bearer said to the 3 of them. Humanity must unite. There is a foundation forming under the traveler. Let me take you there. Ugh, we would never make it, Jesslyn's father growled, fumbling with his bow drill. We can't afford to dream. We can't afford to dream like you can. I would protect you, the Titan said. Jesslyn's father ignored him. Her mother, too. My neighbor says dregs eat children, Jesslyn said to break the silence. I have seen it, the Titan replied. I feel sorry for them, the dregs. The Titan looked down at her for a moment, and then swept his gaze across the ruin of their lives. What is their suffering compared to yours? You lost everything today, and still it was a good day, as these days go. She craned her neck to look up at him. What do you mean? About what? Why is it a good day? I did not arrive too late to help. I did not die today. Do you often worry about dying? She interrupted. I worry about not helping. Have you ever lost a fight? More than I can count. I am no Ikora Ray. I am no Radagast. Who are they? Guardians, like me. Jasleen shrugged, her skinny shoulders sharp under her ratty tunic. Well, that's okay. You're my favorite now. We remember those who help us. Has anyone ever helped you? He nodded. Yes. Oh, yes. Who? The speaker? He thinks for a moment before replying. No, a guardian, like me. Saved me from the fallen when I was young, when I had lost everyone I was meant to protect. That guardian is why humanity must go to the traveler. Justine furrowed her brow. What do you mean? That guardian's ghost and light showed me a vision of humanity's potential. The land beneath the traveler becomes a place of safety. He was interrupted as the foraging party returned with rabbits. They would eat well tonight. As her mother and father moved to help prepare their dinner, Jasleen undid the bow in her hair and motioned the guardian to come closer. She wrapped it around the Titan's gauntlet. I think that's going to take a long time, she said. Maybe. He stared down at his arm. On that day, I will bring this with me. What is your name? She asked. Saint, he said. I'll remember it. And then we move on to another little excerpt of his adventures, which go like this. A woman with gnarled hands and an aged face sat alone on a couch, basking in the dim glow of a golden age ruin. She held back a cough as she eyed ancient monitors on the walls and ceiling, which directed visitors to empty offices belonging to people long dead. It was a cold, silent, and dark, and the woman felt she should leave. But just outside, through the doors behind her, an acid rainstorm showered the streets of a dead city. She had been traveling for weeks, and today she had eaten the last of the hermetically sealed food from a vending machine she had found a few miles from here. If she could go back, she would. She had taken all that she could carry, but the machine had plenty more. Life in the Golden Age must have been a paradise. Right now, she wasn't hungry, and she felt no fear. It was an odd change of pace. She welcomed the respite. The room stretched on for 100 meters in front of her, branching into rows and rows of doors that led to who knew where. There was enough space in this building to house 1,000 families. For a moment, she wished her daughter and her daughter's daughter were still with her here. They had begun their trip together months ago from Varuna, but she had urged them to go on ahead, giving her share of supplies to them. Supplies were heavy, and she was slow. There were rumors of a human settlement growing under the traveler, and the spoken plan was to reunite there. The spoken plan, at least. She rubbed her hands together to ward off the cold, and coughed. Immediately, something creaked far down the hall. A door slammed open, followed by the sound of rapid scoffing. She stood up from her crouch and slowly backed away, pulling a playsteel shiv from a sheath strapped to her thigh. 5 figures with glowing eyes emerged from the gloom and rushed toward her, brandishing weapons. 2 ran like men, massive and four-armed, and 2 were leaner, crawling low to the ground. The last was small, about the size of a human, and it loosed a howl no earth-born mouth could make. She hoped her child and grandchild still lived, and held her weapon up in silent salute. The sliding doors behind her opened with a whoosh, and a violet discus cut through the air above her, singing like a sword loosed from a sheath. 3 of the creatures dissolved into screaming void as the disk of light caromed down the length of the corridor. And as the woman turned to look over her shoulder, an iron monster, alight with boiling void energy, leapt over her. He moved with a grace that contradicted his size and caught one of the remaining beasts by the neck as it bounded at him. He reeled back, and bam! The thing went limp as he smashed its skull with the top of his helm. Its companion lunged with a crackling arc sword, but he stepped forward and kicked its knee out to bring it down to his height, reeled back, and jackhammered the beast's wing helm with his own, and it fell back, dead. The corridor fell silent. He turned and asked quietly, "Where do you hail from?" "Pt.1," the woman replied. He nodded. "Lynn sent me to look for you." The woman scoffed and sheathed her weapon. "She was supposed to go to the Traveler." "She made it. All the way," he replied. "They both did." He raised his armored hand, wrapped tight with purple cloth, and keyed a switch on his helmet. "The jump ship will be here shortly. We'll get you home." "Who gave you that ribbon?" "An old friend. Probably about your age now." "How long do you people live?" "We don't know." The woman stared at him, and then tore a piece from her lavender-colored sleeve. She stepped forward and tied it to a hinge of his pauldron. "What is this?" "Your friend is clever. If I leave this with you, I'll live forever." He chuckled. She did not. "Make a mark on this world," she said. "Don't waste the time you have." "Yes, ma'am," he replied, and they were quiet a moment. "None of this bothers you?" he asked, gesturing at the bodies and the raging storm outside. "Everything bothers me," she said, sitting back down on the couch. "What was your name again?" "May." "I will remember it." And they listened to the rain as they waited. And that's where we're going to stop on this entry for now. We'll come back to it later on.
So we're throughout both of these stories, we're really get a shaping of Saint, and kind of like the beginning of a legend.
Yeah.
You know, like the beginning of like a Thor type legend of like, hey, this guy came and we tied a ribbon to him, and after that we lived. And so when you see this man, tie a ribbon to him, and you will live. Like that's kind of like the legend that's growing around him. But he's again a very young saint, a very as far as guardians go, a young saint.
Yeah.
Um, so very iconically, the protector saint, the what I would call the defensive titan, the bubble titan, the shield bearer, all that stuff. But yeah, two very. I'm curious though. The the girl in the second story seemed to notice or remember the the first ribbon, and then asked a
Yeah,
question about age. Is that first ribbon from her mom?
it's possible. Um,
Like her
so
mom is a little girl, and now it's that much further, and or her grandma or great grandma or something. Like, is this the same like family line?
it's hard to say. So the original girl's name was Justine,
Right,
and this old woman's name is May, or at
May.
least
Yep.
that's the name she gives him. Uh, Now he does say that he thinks that the little girl would have been this old woman's age at this point.
Oh,
Uh,
I see what you're saying. He. Okay. Oh, so it might have been the same person.
it could have been, and she just gave a different name. Like maybe she's changed her name,
Sure.
or who knows. But it does seem like she maybe recognizes the first ribbon. Um, and yeah, she's kind of the first one to say this, like, well, if you carry a piece of them, then they will live for as long as you do. And so she ties her own bit of cloth to his armor, uh, as a means to you know ex- extend herself in that same way.
Sure. Kind of helping perpetuate the legend.
Yeah, yeah. So we see some of Saint's early exploits trying to bring people to this, at this point, just campground that is forming under the Traveler. This city of tents is all it is at this point, or is all it's becoming at this point. Um, but say he is doing more than just going out on patrols and finding citizens on his own. He is also grouping up with a fire team to assist with attempting to bring people to the city. And so we're going to see some of those adventures and exploits in now the book, The Pigeon and the Phoenix proper. So this is another one where it's different sections of the book are at different times in Saint's life, and so there's gonna be some other lore cards kind of intermixed in between. But for the first little bit here, we're gonna mainly be reading out of this lore book. And so we're gonna start with chapter 1, entitled "The Burden, Part 1." And it goes like this. A lone engine rails against the faux tranquility of the dead zone, keeping a teetering chassis of metal just within the Terminator line of brimming twilight. The carrier dives through needled mountains that perforate low-hanging clouds, cutting them into sheets of stratus and vapor that slide like flattening suds across a dusk ocean. A closed-net comm line crackles, and voices are heard. Marin Oru states, most of the canopy is too thick to land. Will be exposed in the clearing. Saint responds, she will be here. Final transmission lists 6 refugees, peddled for ether. And Geppetto chipes in. An upward of 30 fallen. In that case, I'm glad we brought the machine gun. This warlord who deals with them, we will have to pay them a visit. Focus on the task at hand. 30 seconds. Miss Lucine's ghost reports no pikes. However, there is a covered pit in the camp that drew curiosity. They are going radio silent. Something better left alone, I'm sure. They plunge into shadow between peaks, cloud-wake trails as they slow to land. The carrier whirs and rattles, engines cut and cool. The Titan and Warlock disembark, and they wait. Well done, Geppetto. Martin Uru's voice emanates from his helmet, stiffly fixed on the tree line. Geppetto blinks code into the glooming horizon, awaiting a response. Thank you, Brother Marin. It was my first time. Marin is a statue. Saint opens the carrier's cargo hold and turns to Marin. She will be here. Geppetto blinks. No response from Miss Lucine. All this worry is over nothing. Tiv will laugh with us tomorrow. Saint pats Marin's back. Tomorrow. Marin's eyes are fixed on the darkening tree line. Yes, tomorrow. The day after, again after that, and more, until a day without armor. That is a pleasant thought. Marin straightens, peering at a point in the depth. A light blinks from the tree line. Brother Saint, I have located them. That's the end of that chapter.
Brother Saint. Ooh.
Yep.
Typically, the brother one is I associate that with the followers of Osiris.
Yep. This would have been well before that, though.
Long before.
And yeah, we will see that Saint adopts this. I equate it to almost like religious hierarchy with his fire team and the speaker.
Interesting.
He refers to the speaker as father.
Right.
And he refers to the members of his fire team as brother and sister.
Oh, okay. So very is creating a more close-knit set than just like a bunch of dudes on a mission.
Yeah, and I think it does make a certain amount of sense, at least for the speaker, because the speaker was literally the first person he saw other than his ghost when he was resurrected for the first time.
Born for lack of a better term.
Yeah, kinda. So it's not literal, it's not, they're not actually related. The speaker is not actually his father, but it's just this kind of familial terminology he has adopted for those that are within his, guardian family, essentially. So, but yes, so in this first one, Marin and Saint have landed this cargo ship in the secluded area of the dead zone, the European dead zone, and they are awaiting Tiv Lucine, who is the third member of their fire team, to make themselves known, presumably to leave on this cargo ship with, it sounded like prisoners that were going to be traded for ether with this nearby warlord who I guess was making deals with the Elixni from the sounds of it.
I was going to ask, is this like warlord in the sense of like Shax was a warlord style warlord, right? Like this isn't like another fallen warlord. Because
Nope.
because fallen weren't really known as warlords. They were all pirates and scavengers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am under the assumption that this is warlord as in a light bearer warlord.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, they're awaiting her, and saying it's like, oh, no big deal. Of course she's gonna show up. Don't worry about it. And Marin's like, yeah, okay, as he's staring at where she's the rendezvous point. And then eventually does see a light that indicates she is there, which leads us into chapter 2, which is the burden, part 2. And it goes like this. Tiv Lucine leaves the tree line with 6 souls in tow. She spots Geppetto's light flickering in the twilight, and her own ghost spins and shimmers in the hands of a child who is navigating them to their destination. Moonlight creeps into the valley, lifting the arrested momentary pitch between sundown and moonrise. Dew hugs the grass along her boots. They approach, and the ghosts dissipate. Marin stands poised. A long barrel armament affixed with a bipod adorns his shoulders. Thank you for doing this, Marin. Tiv speaks softly. She thrusts a steady hand towards his. He nods and shakes her hand. It was Saint's idea. Is that what he told you? She looks to Saint, greeting refugees and ushering them into the carrier. It does not matter who had the idea. Saint 14 steps forward and hugs her. Marin straightens and looks beyond them. Flares loose from the canopy, breathing pale azure revival back into sky. Shrieks and lights whip into frenzy within the trees, and cloud cover casts darkness over the clearing. Marin's stance breaks. Tiv, get this heap into the air. Saint, you're with me. Marin plants a bipod in the grass. Saint spreads his light into a gleaming barricade in opposition against the tree line. Go now. It is a long flight. We will make sure you are not followed. Saint shoulders his rifle. Tiv nods. She runs for the cockpit. Saint salutes as the cargo hold shuts. Howls ring from the brink. Fallen step into the clearing. Marin racks the repeater. Come on, then. The carrier engine fires. It roars bright, bellowing flame. A beacon, a wish as it launches into the sky. A cacophony of sounds in the distance, splitting heated bends through the canopy pine as a screaming red shell tears across the clearing. And the carrier is annihilated. Tiv shatters. Her body skids across the grass in ruin. Deafening shock breaks the night, and in it, one lone call. Spider tank! And that's where that chapter ends.
Well, shit. Shit. God damn it. Fallen are dangerous. Like that cannot be overstated. At this point in time in history, Fallen are like severe. Like they are dangerous. Like humanity almost lost. Humanity almost died to the Fallen. Is how dangerous they are. And so, like, yeah, for a single round of a spider tank to come through and just completely fuck the entire plan to bits is not unheard of in this day and age.
Yeah, and so that, Tiv was aboard it and died from the shot, but she is a guardian as well. But the civilians that she presumably broke out of, wherever they're being held prisoner, yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, not so good day.
So we see the conclusion of this particular encounter in chapter 3, which is titled The Burden, Part 3. And it goes like this. Saint looks to the twisted scar where the carrier had been. They are gone. Suppressing fire! Marin sends their response clear into the tree line. The fallen charge against his lead rebuke. Move! Saint catches sight of Tiv, now newly breathing. She stumbles several paces away, posture crooked among the wreckage. She leans against a shard of the carrier's hull, out of sight, while her ghost busily spins light. The hand of her good arm sinks to a sheathed blade, and the night air hangs still. The Exo's eyes lock to the tree line, his will solid iridescence. The air around him bends into infinite density. Violet shimmer ripples across his plate and bows outward against the horror, consolidating into a luminous shield. He meets the fallen charge with a void light dome. Machine gun fire rips overhead, cutting down dregs and splitting the front in two. He takes ground with every step, shattering each challenger. He breaks through the tree line and flings his shield, severing one of the walker's limbs. He is at the brink, face to face with death. The walker's field gun teeters to match his verticality. Saint 14 braces. He is an incandescent ward, a just retribution, a violet wall that stands to refute the night, but the dawn does not follow. A second shell rings from the walker's cannon, and it collides, apocalyptic. The ward shatters against the blast. and there is only darkness. A steel hand, limp and flat, slowly clenches into a fist. They are dragged. Saint grasps at consciousness. His vision is fire and wreckage. Timbers shatter against the walker's frame as it emerges before them, shrouded behind the smoke. Fallen mouths shriek in muted, deaf-tone emptiness as they fill the clearing. Saint blinks. The world races back to him. Skas Veskirisk. The remaining fallen ranks part to reveal a hulking captain. Skas Volsisk. Chitters and trills run from the vandal down to the dredges as he roars. Marin is at his back, breathing and bleeding. Faster, Tiv. Kapsok as nafnitnos. Kapsok as vamasakilaноsk. The horde raise their arms. Melisknisk, moaning quinn. They unleash a storm of bolts. Tiv meets the bolts in the air, crackling with lightning that snaps at the ground beneath her. She whisks away the storm with a keen discipline, scattering a hail of arc bolts around the fire team. Dirt hisses as the bolts sear into the ground and billow clouds into the air. She slides into the obfuscating dust and sweeps arc purity through the fallen in the confusion. Marin takes the distraction. He distillates all his will, all the light he can muster into one point, and color drains around him, and the point grows dark. He casts it from him, a pale iridescence that rips reality endlessly into itself. The sphere of void strikes the walker true, twisting and crumpling metal into oblivion. And not one fallen remains, as the fire team stands alone in the wreckage. And that's the end of that chapter.
On the one hand, I'm like, let's go! On the other hand, I'm like, oh, but everyone died. So, like, let's go.
Yeah.
You got revenge, but at what cost? Like, everyone still died. Though I do like their tactic here of like, oh, we died. Nope, JK, we rezzed in the middle of your ceremony of like sacrificing us to whatever god you think you have. And then we just killed all of you. Like, sucks to suck, bro.
Yep.
And also, fantastic job on that Elixni.
Thanks, I guess.
That was a hard one. Like, I was like, is he gonna fake his way through this? No? Okay, he's going for it. Go for it.
Yeah. Hey, at least there's no native Elixni speakers to tell me how bad that accent was.
Exactly.
So there we go. But no, so yeah, Saint obviously is leading these expeditions on his own and with this fire team, try and bring everyone he can to the Traveler because he knows that is where safety will eventually be. He knows there will one day be a city there that people can feel safe in.
I think another thing that is kind of weighing heavily on Saint here is that as much as he knows this is the future, not everyone's going to make it.
Right. It's still a struggle to get there.
Yeah. And I think this most recent entry is one of those points of like, we're going to try as best we can, but not everyone's going to make it.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so while Saint has been off doing, all of the things we just heard about, our series isn't just the series of Saint 14, it's Saint and Osiris.
Yeah.
So what has Osiris been doing? Osiris is somewhere else. Now, Osiris, we don't know the specifics behind his resurrection, but we do know that he was a student of both Felwinter and Timur of the Iron Lords. And although Osiris never became an Iron Lord himself, he spent a significant amount of time under their tutelage until eventually he ventured forth away from the Iron Lords with the intention of visiting this growing settlement under the Traveler.
You mean to tell me he wasn't always an arrogant asshole?
Well, I mean, he might have always been that.
An arrogant know-it-all warlock? Like every other warlock you've ever met?
Yeah, I mean, just because he had people teaching him things doesn't mean he wasn't still full of himself. But,
you know who I am? I am Osiris. Cute. That's my favorite line in all of it. Cute.
Mm-hmm. But no, so we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're now going to follow Osiris. And this is in chapter 4 of The Pigeon and the Phoenix. And this one goes like this. Cinders spit, washing the faint light over Osiris's lone face. The woods behind him formlessly melt into midnight nothing. Sagira moves across his shoulders. Distant serenity. She is a small diamond, in stilled isolation, a playful flitter blinking among the thermal plume. Pensive focus sloughs the physical. He is alone in the void as he meditates. Intrusions no more. There is a path in the depth. It cannot be directly viewed. He must delve, dive, deeper. The fire's going out. Cloying worldly noise rushes back to him. What? Aren't you cold? I wasn't. Osiris rubs his brow and stirs the fire. Thank you, Sagira. It's not going to get any clearer just because you want it to, Osiris. You need time. Osiris clenches his jaw. He feels himself standing in a wide shallow, gaping at an unrecognizable profundity. Why did you choose me? Osiris's voice is hollow. He flattens a palm for Sagira to perch. You have a spark? Her voice is warm air, and the fire pops. A spark. Frustration lines his face. This world is dying, over and over again. So were you. I dragged you back. Sagira allows Osiris's hand to cradle her shell. I raised you until you could stand on your own. You'll do the same for them, in your own way. Her words linger in his ears with sweetness. I don't have your patience, Sagira. He takes in a slow breath and lets it out. Someone's coming. Her voice is sharp. Conceal me. Sagira dissipates as Osiris closes his palm, and the light dims around him. And that's the end of that entry.
Ooh, conceal me from what?
Well, let's find out.
Hide me from my Korra.
Not quite. But no, so we will find out in chapter 5 of The Pigeon and the Phoenix, which goes like this. A small band of humans emerge from the woods at Osiris's flank, some carrying rust-laden firearms. The one who leads them jaunts forward. Stand up, old man. The words are slung over his shoulder, wet and heavy. No. A painted ghost whips in front of Osiris's face. Warlord Reich demands you stand. You're on my turf, burning my wood. That's stealing. That's an arm. Given immortality, and all you can think to do is grab at what's around you. What a waste. The warlord laughs. The ghost quickly laughs in step. You are a disgrace. Osiris peers over his shoulder. Leave. Rethink your path. It's your arm or your life. Those are the rules. Make your decision. Osiris leaves the words to hang around the warlord's head. I have half a dozen guns at my back. The warlord puts pitted iron to Osiris's hood. And I have a spark. Flame engulfs Osiris, erupting into wings that cast back the shadows of the night. A white-hot blade extends from his hand. In one swift motion, Osiris cuts the warlord down to a sizzling heap and snatches the stunned ghost from the air. His gaze shifts to the people to catch sight of their backs as the lot retreat into the woods. His attention snaps to the ghost. Why this man? Osiris douses the flame around him. Get off me! Sagira compiles herself back into existence. You, sister, help! Okay, hey, he's not going to hurt you. Talk to me. Pretend like he's not here. Sagira aligns herself directly in front of the ghost, and their irises lock and twitch erratically in sequence. Oh. Let him go. Osiris releases, and the ghost dissipates. Sagira? He needed someone strong. A fighter. Nothing more? Sagira pauses. The traveler was wounded when it created us. That pain echoes. Some of us make choices we shouldn't. Some of us are scared. The process isn't streamlined. There are flaws. Osiris shrinks against the forest's apathetic density. If there are flaws in the light, then it could be corrupted. It is not indomitable, and so, in time, would be challenged. We're pieces of a whole, but distinct, unique. You're not exactly Mr. Perfect yourself. He would need to learn patience. Where will that ghost go? To reunite with the traveler. To find someone new. Someone better. And that's the end of that chapter.
Don't disturb old men if you're not ready to throw down. That's what I'm gonna say here. Like, I love that idea of like he grabs the ghost and he's like got a flaming sword held to him, and then the whole time he's like, I just want to talk. I just want to talk while he's like reloading his weapons and like, I just want to talk. That's all I want to do. Sure, okay. Playing a little good cop, bad cop, and you're both of the bad cops.
Oh. So yeah, I think it's interesting because we've kind of wondered as well, and even some characters like the Drifter have been like, look, not all the ghosts are good. They resurrected some real bad people.
That's been kind of a big thing. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why? And you and I've always theorized that it's been like about drive, like because that person just has a drive, they're driven in them. But here we're seeing a little bit different, not excuse, but explanation.
Mm-hmm. And I think it might still be some level of like drive to live, like drive for survival, perhaps.
To fight.
Yeah, to just to be strong enough to keep fighting. And Sagira is saying like ghosts aren't, in her mind at least, aren't supposed to resurrect bad people, but they're scared. Like this is not a good place to be, even as a ghost. And if you're a guardianless ghost, you are very vulnerable. And you come across someone that like, yeah, they're not perfect, they're not a good person, but they could keep you alive. Like, I kind of see where that's coming from.
One of those take the good with the bad type things.
A little bit, yeah. So, and just this idea that like the traveler was fearful when it made the ghosts, and so some of that fear has like echoed through the ghosts is an interesting idea as well.
Did we ever land on a theory of if the traveler and ghost is kind of that conductor and chorus style?
Um, I don't think it's conductor and chorus, just because like the traveler is not a directing
Right.
mind in the same
It's
way
it's
that
like a
like
directing purpose, but not a direct control.
right.
It's not sending out orders to all the ghosts saying go res be this thing. It's just like it's more of a unifying thing of like the traveler created us and therefore we need to protect it.
Yeah, and it's interesting if we go off the theory that we talked about a couple episodes ago from the one of the shout outs about the ghosts being a creation of
Of
the
both.
power of the veil and the traveler.
Yeah.
You know, it might not even be that the traveler ever gave them a directive. It might just be that whatever the traveler was feeling or thinking kind of leaked over into the ghosts
Oh,
via
sure.
the veil.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. But needless to say, yeah, Osiris is incredibly powerful at this. I mean, he always has been up until the loss of his light, but this is probably his peak. Is at this time, this point in time. But yeah, so he is trying to get to the last city, seemingly to provide instruction or perspective to the people there, as Segura kind of says, like, you know, you will be a good teacher there, essentially.
So
Um,
so still kind of that the I'm the smartest warlock in the room.
it sounds like it, yeah. uh, but no, so we continue the journey with Osiris in the next chapter, which is chapter 6, entitled Foundations, Part 1. And this one goes like this. What would be the last city looms over Osiris. Ramshackle barricades bend around it miles into the distance. He strides through half-formed steel rust walls and across flattened earth, pocked from small arms fire. He passes dozens of citizens welding fortifications, making repairs and disassembling the battle-scorched hovels to repurpose material into permanent homes. Light bearers dot the landscape, heaving great loads of metal into the burgeoning walls, melting beams together with solar light, or scanning for distant threats all along the many watchtowers that border the city, like lighthouses guiding the lost into safe harbor. Ghosts project diagrams and schematics to steer the hands of each worker. One man pulls a crude cup from a bucket. It drips clean water as he lifts it to his lips and drinks deeply while the bucket is ferried away on pulleys to quench another group elsewhere. I've never seen so many ghosts before. Will we be staying long? The traveler is here. Where better to find the answers we seek? The smell of tea and spice flow through the air, bouncing punctuantly to the senses over aging smoke and fumes. An aroma of peppered meats draws Osiris towards a central square full of scattered materials and low cinder chunk walls, propped up scrapyard rifles. An armored exo shuffles between cooking grills inside a ring of rubble. It sounded grander? Sagira muses, surveying the tent city remnants in the distance. Rumors always do. It's not quite the foothold Oasis Fellwinter spoke of, but it is a start. What could be grander? The exo-chef clattered half a dozen wooden plates of food onto a rough stone counter. This is hope, Guardian. Quiet days like these, soon there will be more. Oh, I'm no guardian, just meeting a friend. Osiris looks to a far tower jutting above the encompassing construction, solitary in the shadow of an osseous white orb. Then I will be your friend. Come, sit, eat. There is enough for you to join us. I am Saint 14. Osiris's eyes the plated meat and smoky grill before glancing back at the distant fortifications. You could do the work of 20 on that wall. It is their wall. Should they require assistance, they need only ask. Saint 14 extends a plate of food toward Osiris and arranges his faceplates into a smile. Well, since he's not going to introduce us, this is Osiris, and I am Sagira. It is very nice to meet you, Saint. And that's the end of that chapter.
Oh, it was so sweet. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I do think between the two of them, I do think of Saint as like the griller. Like I feel like
Yeah.
Saint could grill a mean steak. Osiris can brew a nice cup of tea, but Saint's definitely got the grill on lockdown, I feel like.
Which is fun considering Osiris is the solar warlock.
That's what I'm saying. Like you got a void and yeah, no, I got you. Yeah. But I do like it's interesting that like even like Saint realizes that there's a role for everyone in the city. Like they're building the wall. If they need help, they'll come ask. Otherwise, people need fed too. I'm going to help. I'm going to do what I can do where I can do it. But again, still just a hovel of
yeah, just
ramshackle
and
nothing.
Yeah, it's starting to try and turn into something, but yeah, it's just tents and scrap that's been used to create fortifications at this point.
I'm curious if all those steaks are actually pigeons. Now that I'm thinking on it, come try my grilled bird. It is pigeon.
Well, we get a little continuation on this interaction in the next chapter, which is chapter 7, titled Foundations Part 2. And this one goes like this. It is nice to meet you too, Sagira. Osiris, please. Saint 14 gestures to a flimsy wooden chair. Two ghosts zoom past them and sweep plates from the counter before scooting off. Would you mind helping them bring food to the people, Sagira? Sure, let me just load up my service protocol. The joke hangs, and Saint 14 expresses genuine thanks, and Sagira is forced to relent. Okay, I will be right back. And she delicately balances a plate and begins to float away. Are you not hungry? You could be patrolling with the Iron Lords. Osiris pulls the plate closer. Saint sits. Is that what gives you purpose? A gaggle of ghosts zoom across the ground, kicking up tiny clouds and chirping to each other. They glide up the rubble, leave clean plates, scoop up new ones, and are gone again. There are monsters out there, the kind a lightless being could not hope to overcome. Life is hard. Saint stands to line the grill with shaved pork. Those of us who can help should. I worry about wasted potential. Osiris sneaks a small piece from his plate. You should see the speaker. Perhaps he can help you find your path. Osiris scoffs. I don't think he has my answers. You want to bet? Saint flips the mound of pork with his hand. I don't gamble. Osiris pauses. He glances over his shoulder. Sagira twists in formation with the other ghosts. They dance through the air, scooping empty plates from improvised tables. Is your speaker a good man? I would give my life for him. All this, Saint 14 gestures to the borders of the city. It is a breath. People are better if they have a moment to breathe. You think so? I do, and I think you will come to see that I am right. Ghosts make the loop, and Segura laughs. Maybe. Thank you for the food, Saint 14. You are very welcome. And the two eat, and Osiris's shoulders slacken. Does this taste burnt to you? No, not at all. And that's the end of that chapter.
His piece of plum pie, Guardian, is all fine. You will see. His food is fine. Okay, so apparently he's not a good griller.
I mean, just because you know that.
I love that he just flips it with his hand.
Yeah,
like he doesn't even have like a spatula or anything. He's just like, it'll sear. It's fine. I'll just ghost it up tomorrow. It's whatever. All right, so he's definitely the griller, but he's not a good griller.
Yeah.
Poor Saint, or poor Osiris
for having to eat it.
That's what he's got to deal with. He doesn't know it, but that's what he's got to deal with for the rest of eternity. Yep. You better teach him some seasonings or something.
But yeah, so Osiris is now in the city. Saint and he have met. And Osiris is very, even at this point, he's very like,
he's judgmental.
Yeah, kind of, but he's more like we need to more optimize like who's doing what. Like it doesn't make sense for you to be making food.
That efficiency thing in his brain won't shut off. He's got to be 100% efficient as a warlock. So by extension, everyone around him needs to be 100% efficient.
Well, it's that portion, and then it's also he seems to have this very deep-seated like the light is not enough. Like we need to be as strong as possible because the light is not like we can't just rely on it. He's almost I don't know if I don't know
he's
if
pessimistic.
Paranoid, definitely pessimistic. I don't know if he's full on like paranoid at this point, but he kind of seems that way. Like, you know,
he gives the vibe of it, but I don't think he actually is.
Yeah, but regardless, he kind of relents and is like, "All right, I'll take a moment here, and just kind of experience this, and maybe I'll talk to your speaker." Because you're vouching for him.
I'll indulge in your burnt pork ends.
Yeah. So I say they're both in the city now, and we're going to return to Saint's point of view for a second, and see some of his solo adventures while the city is in this process of being built. And so we're returning to the Accolades web lore. We're going to read a couple more entries, and we can see also how Saint's reputation has grown over this time. So going back to Accolades, and it goes like this. 3 children, 2 awoken girls and a human boy, slept against a rampart in the city wall. They were standing in for their parents, members of the city volunteer militia. They weren't old enough to carry weapons, but the boy clutched a remote access switch that would alert every guard in the district. He would need to be awake to trigger it, though. And so Saint 14 stood watch in their stead. He would leave when his patrol cycle began in the morning. The children woke when the sun broke the horizon. They pretended not to see him at first, but when one of the girls tore her handkerchief in 2 and tied one half to the Titan's pauldron, the other 2 did the same with scraps of cloth and fabric. He asked for their names, but they weren't supposed to give their names to strangers, and they all parted amicably. And another entry from here. The Titan leapt atop the smoldering wreckage of a kit-bashed airship, a stripped-down Arcadia class incapable of escaping orbit, and tore the Golden Age polymer canopy right off the cockpit. He pulled a startled Awoken from out of the pilot's cabin as the airship's remaining engine crackled and roared. With the Awoken in his arms, the Guardian tumbled deftly off of the Arcadian airframe and took off at full speed away from the wreckage. The shock cannon that tore the ship out of the sky had started an arc reaction in the engine power cells that would. And the shock wave overtook him and tossed him into the air. He rolled to his feet as he landed, dropping the pilot as a dome of light snapped into being around them. A sleet of debris and shrapnel rolled across the Titan's ward of dawn. As the metal rain faded, so did the Guardian's light. The two stood up. The Titan pulled a Daystar SMG from a back holster, checked to see if it was loaded, and handed it to the Awoken. You are lucky. The Fallen shot you down 20 miles from the Traveler. They will not bother you again. Head due south. He pointed and turned to leave, but the pilot tapped his shoulder guard. Yes. The pilot untied a bandana on his arm and held out the strip of plum-colored cloth. You are joking. I have nothing else to give, the pilot said. That ship was my life. The Titan stared down at the man. You have found a new life. Go to the Traveler. It's bad luck not to give Saint 14 his due. Reluctantly, Saint grasped the cloth. What is your name? Georges, the pilot replied. Saint turned back toward the desert. I will remember it. And that's where we're going to stop on accolades for a little bit, at least.
You think he still remembers all these names?
I think he does.
Is Saint the Exa that never forgets?
I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
You gotta remember,
legend, right? Like that's the big legend that's going.
Right.
Like the Saint rescues you. You give him a piece of cloth, and if you don't, you're fucked. It's bad luck.
And you gotta remember, in game, just like you can see those little scraps on him.
Yeah,
like they're all over his armor.
His armor, his ship. They are everywhere.
Yeah. So to think that each of those is a person he saved, or in some small way, like with the children, he saved them from guard duty, or in this case where he hopped on a moving ship, tore the pilot out of it, and
I was
jumped
ask
out.
About that. You think he rolls nat 20s on acrobatics every time?
I mean, he's a Titan, right?
That's what I mean. That's what it's got to be. Proficiency, right? Is that what's happening here?
If he's raging, he gets advantage.
Get the fuck out! Goddamn. God damn it! This is slowly evolving into D&D. I guess what is Destiny but just space D&D, right?
Hey, someone has made a 5e version of of Destiny.
Was it Destiny and Dragons?
Yeah, or I forget exactly what it was, but anyway, we've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate.
Way too much Baldur's Gate.
But no, so yeah, Saint is still continuing this role of being, this
legend.
very heroic figure, of this person that runs in and saves people and just in the nick of time kind of thing.
Well, and it's funny too, because like when we started this like path down, like Saint is building up a name for himself. I have a different name for him in my head from what the Elixni refer to him as.
Yes. Yeah.
And so like one man's burden is another man's evil boogeyman.
And we will talk about that. Because he hasn't gone on that particular escapade yet at this point.
Okay. So he's still building up the I am Saint 14, protector of people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his shtick right now.
Yeah. So however, as more and more people come into this area under the Traveler, come into what is becoming the last city, that also means that there is a higher potential for conflict between those people.
Oh, sure. You get enough
And
of different ideas and different thoughts in the same area,
mhm,
you're going to get conflict.
yep, different ideas of what they should be doing, how the
Yep.
city should be built, what the priorities should be, especially in a place that really doesn't have a form of government at
Right.
this point. Um, the only thing that has formed at some point during this city being built is the Vanguard. But the Vanguard is only supposed to be directing and coordinating guardian activities. They do not hold a position of power politically in any way at this time.
Well, and I think we've talked about this too. The Vanguard are very much. I, I hesitate to say religious in nature, but they kind of.
Kind of, yeah. Especially at this time and point, there's the speaker was. I won't say his word was law, but a lot of people assumed that what the speaker said
Sure.
was for the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we start to see here at this point where there are these divisions in ideas of priority, of ideology, of how they should move forward. We start to see factions form within the city, and some of them are pretty well known to us. Dead Orbit, New Monarchy, Future War Cult. Others we have never
Shout out
heard
to all
of
my
before.
Dead Orbit brothers and sisters out there. Into the world come, and we will greet it with open arms.
Well, Dead Orbit's whole shtick was the end of this world is coming, so we need to GTFO.
That's true.
Like,
That's true.
they, they didn't want to stay. They're like, no, we need to leave. Um, but so we have these factions forming, and these factions are not they're not in the way that we know them in game, or how we did know them, I guess, in game,
I was
where
gonna say
they're
they're
like,
very
okay, they
dangerous
have
at this
their
point,
own
aren't they?
little pieces. They're very dangerous at this point. There has now been violence enacted
Uh,
between these factions.
yeah, I was gonna say that like each ideology is like pushing that level of conflict higher and higher to the surface.
Yes. So this is what is known as the faction war. That happens a somewhat, I won't say full scale like civil war, but there is violence, there are casualties happening within the city amongst these factions. And the speaker has finally decided they need to do something about it. And so we're going to read from the lore book Constellations, specifically the chapter entitled Growing. And it goes like this: I am the last speaker, and I sit at a table with the vanguard while the city around us fights over nothing. We built this city to find some kind of unity, Tallulah says. She has her hands on the table and is leaning forward like she might jump over it. We're breaking apart from the inside. Silence falls over the room. I'm trying to think. What does the traveler say? St. 14 asks quietly, and everyone looks at me. I breathe in through my nose, breathe out slowly. About the factions, I ask, or about people killing each other in our streets. This is not what the traveler wanted, that much I can tell you. That was the direct result of creating us, Osiris says, leaning back in his seat. He is stone-faced as always. Violence. Does the traveler truly know what it wants? I try to hide my frustration, and I'm glad my face is hidden by a mask. The truth is this. I cannot say for certain what the traveler wants, or whether it knows what it wants. The traveler does not speak to me in words, but in dreams. Dream language is cramped. The messages come from the traveler, disintegrate on the way to me, and reform into something else. I am an interpreter more than a speaker. But uncertainty has been the death of us before, and it will be again if we are not vigilant. So what I say is, the traveler has always wanted to protect humanity, on its own or through guardians. We need to enact that will. With all due respect to both of you, Tallulah says, eyeing Osiris and me, this isn't about the traveler. This is about what happens when people come together without anyone to really lead them. She taps her foot. She's nervous. Unusual for Tallulah. Let us go on a little longer, and this is the same as the Dark Age. It's just warlords packed into a tighter pen. A body of representatives would help, Saint 14 says. Something to allow all sides to be heard. Every side has a voice, but not all voices should be given the same weight, I say, shaking my head. Some of these ideas are dangerous. We should determine which factions can continue to exist and give them an official channel through which to air their grievances and pursue their needs. Which ideas are dangerous, Speaker? Osiris asks. He is watching me steadily. And who decides that? This is not a fight, Saint 14 says. We have enough of those ahead of us. We will hear from each of the factions, I say, ignoring Osiris. Some decision is better than no decision. Give them the opportunity to plead their case and save for those who have resorted to outright violence. Well, then I guess we've got to get rid of Ekulon South, for one, Tallulah lists, counting on her fingers. And those binary star idiots, too. Was it trinary? Whatever. Anyway, there are plenty of fingers pointed at this new group, too. Monarchy something. If anyone can prove the rumors, we exile their leaders, I say, holding up my hand. The factions that stay will argue their case, and of those that have a valuable viewpoint to bring to the governance of the city, we will create a council. This sets a dangerous precedent, Speaker, Osiris says. We will have this argument again later, I can already tell. I hope you are prepared to walk this slope. We take a vote. Osiris is the only no. Then, after an inquiry into the violence, we form the consensus. And that's the end of that chapter.
Governing is hard, man. That's especially governing a large body of people. That's hard. What is the saying, Myth? The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yep.
So loudest voice in the room gets heard. He may not even be speaking the same ideas as the rest of the group. So again, to try to Osiris puts it plainly, like, this is dangerous. This sets a precedence, and this is dangerous. Like, it's tough times are ahead, and I mean, there's nothing you can do but move forward. Like, inaction, inaction against this level of violence that's happening here in the city amongst all these factions is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Like, that's all there is to it. And so no, a decision is way better than no decision, as the speaker puts it.
Yep. Even if it's not the right one, at least it's moving in a direction rather than just standing still and watching everything destroy itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, It's a tough spot,
It's
but
too it's too close to our world, myth.
but this is what led to the consensus, which is the governing body of the city for a very long time.
I was going to say that is no longer the case, right?
Because there is no factions anymore.
Right. The
Yeah, all
Vanguard
the
disbanded
factions
all
left.
factions because of the big hubaloo. What 5 years? Shoot, I don't know how many years ago it was.
Well, it would have been season of the Splicer.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah. Because of Lakshmi kind of
yeah,
fucked that up for everyone.
yeah, because Future War Call, did built the gate and did all that, and then but they were helped by Dead Orbit and New Monarchy, and
Yep.
the Vanguard didn't even necessarily disband anything. It was just like all of the people that were of those factions saw things go downhill and went, I don't want to be here when someone has to, you know,
Answer for this.
be the
Be held
has to
responsible
face
or
consequences.
held accountable. Yeah.
So they all just pieced out and left in one way or another. So that's where the factions are at now. But for a very long time, the consensus was the governing body, and it was made up of the speaker, the 3 Vanguard members, and then they don't specifically say here if it's the 3 factions we know of or if it started as different ones, but a number of civilian factions that are not do not have light bearers as a representative. So the city is built up over time. It continues to evolve. It continues to grow. And as it gets more and more fortified and more people gather there, it becomes a bigger and bigger target as well. We now approach the first big battle of the last city, that being the Battle of Six Fronts. Uh, so, this was a battle that both Saint and Osiris participated in. And this was, as its name suggests, there were 6 fronts that were fought on around the city that were pushing back the forces of the fallen who are trying to invade the city in an attempt to get the traveler back in their eyes. So we can see some snippets of the different battles that were taking place for Saint and Osiris in chapter 8 of the Pigeon and the Phoenix lore book, which goes like this. Saint 14 barrels through drifting wool tufts, dyed and now dispersed polychromic patterns. A detachment of the Firebreak Order had overextended their hold in the valley, and when pressed, refused to give ground. Their valiance was swept away in futility. 8 were downed, 1 was missing. He emerged at a ridgetop in the western border, ribbons of wool still clinging to his armor like kaleidoscope streaks. Munitions detonate against the open sky behind him. Lightning crashes down in response. The city is not lost yet. 8 guardians lay lightless, their bodies back to back in a field of broken enemies and scorched earth. Fallen circle them like vultures. In the chaos, their ghosts had fled toward the ridgetop without detection. Saint 14 watches them glide fast and low. He maps the route up the sloped ridge toward a small crater at the lip where he could meet them. His attention snaps to the crater. The 9th, Elric. She was safe and alone and burrowed into herself. Saint slides into the crater next to Elric. Her surprised terror fades to relief. Are you okay? Yes. Her ghost is wounded but alive. We will clear a path, and we will all stand again. The air bursts open above the fallen. Those closest are incinerated. In their place shines Osiris's brilliant golden light. The blast ruptures a nearby captain's barrier, sending them careening across the dirt. Hissing and roars erupt. Shock rifles sling bolts skyward, and flame rains and scatters them. His movements cut Orderite ribbons through their ranks. Disorientation turns to panic, and one after another they are consumed by his conflagration. Give them hell, you crazy bastard. Saint turns to Elric. Are you ready? I can't. Osiris cheats his sight to the fleeing ghosts for a moment. Click. They had almost made the ridge. Click. He spun back, palm alight. Click. The captain, now standing, sends the full fury of his scorch cannon. The blast rips through Osiris's image in shimmering fashion, scattering light across the valley, traced in molten glass. More fallen flood the valley. We need you, Titan. I cannot die again. Then we will not die. Saint checks his magazine. Several tiny lights blip over the lip of the ridge. Guardians! She sits up, counts them all. 8 lives. 8 that would carry so many more. I couldn't. This is a new choice. Saint 14 steps out of the crater. You are only what you want to be. Elric stands. Hide now, little ones. We're going to get your guardians back. And that's the end of that chapter.
Yeah, let's go. Got me pumped up for this battle.
So, Battle of Six Fronts, the most major battle the city has ever faced at this point. One of the 6 fronts, one of the battle fronts, was being held by this group of Firebreak Titans, Solar Titans, that pushed too far out into the field. They were ambushed. They were killed, but their ghosts survived. With the exception of one of the Titans was also able to escape, this Elric. But, Saint is kind of like Osiris's image, his reflection, gets them enough time to let the ghosts of the Guardians escape, run away, get out of the line of danger. And Saint is saying to this lightless Titan, like, this is, you couldn't help them in the ambush, but this is a new choice. You get to decide who you want to be in this moment. And Elric decides that they're going to follow Saint into the fire. And as Saint says, like, it's easy. Just don't die.
Yeah.
And then you won't have to worry about it.
Full stop. Pretty easy. Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
First rule of Destiny: don't die.
Yep. Shoot them, don't get shot.
There you go.
Easy. So we continue with the battle. We continue the fight through the eyes of Osiris now.
I was going to ask too: is the Osiris that's raining fire down? Is that Osiris or is that a reflection?
It's a reflection because it talks about the scorch cannon going through it
Just
and
kind of like dissipating,
shattering.
Yeah. Yep.
So definitely a reflection.
Osiris knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so we continue now in chapter 9, which is titled Thin. And it goes like this. Osiris burns, a roaring visage against the sky-soot firmament, compressing endless night. Skeins of light twist and hum, charged sinews stitch through his muscle and bone. Myriad shimmering gold marionettes scramble to reinforce gaps across the city's defense at his behest. The east below him breached by a wave of frantic clamoring fallen. The front had not broken, only moved. He focuses his projections there. A small fire team holds the line. Osiris twists. Golden defiance moves to staunch the fallen's momentum. One projection locks eyes with a titan. She nods, and with fluid elegance the projection lifts her skyward, and she brings down a tempest that rolls across the city walls and scatters the advancing force. Shax bellows in the distance. Multiple skeins snap. The light stretches into starless night, and oblivion crowds the borders of Osiris's mind in suffocating omnipresence. The margins, light thinly stretched, under duress, never enough. The west is bending, the transfer instantaneous. Osiris weaves inferno, ether and flame engulfing each other into ashen wake. He spots 8 lights climbing the ridge. Click. A lone guardian crashes onto the ridgetop horizon. Click. They will survive. Click. He turns palm alight. The north is bending. Nerves burn, and the city's golden hue falters. Only a moment of exhalation. And then the north fractures, and field guns rip into the wall. He is there. 2 hunters hold. One snap fires beams of sunlight from her rifle wreathed in flame. The second dances through challengers, her blades arc purity. None would pass them. His projections move to fill the gap. Bodies in the rubble, evacuees from the eastern breach caught in the blast. Their deaths filled his mind through the 20 gilded eyes, capturing the scene in its totality. Osiris would scour the northern front in golden light. He looked to the shattered wall, through the gap, mind into aisle, overshadowed by the eternal precipice. Crowded with menace, eyes peering down, seeping over, hungry, waiting to flood this last hope with plunging depth. Even now, as fallen lines break against the light, others stand, watching from deep, starless hollows. If not this, another. The dam will fail, all due in time. But for now, the south bends, and it can still be cleansed with fire. And that's the end of that chapter.
You don't think they'd ever give us that super, do you think?
That'd be kind of cool.
You go super, and there's just 40 of you just doing
Yeah.
all independent movement from each other, just tracking and going and just destroying with fire. Like, no, that's not OP, is it?
No, of course not.
You just tune down how much damage they do in PvP, and then you're set, right? Like that's
Right.
yeah. No,
Right.
I got you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're golden.
Yeah.
But no, so yeah, the thing about Osiris's reflections though is that he is seeing and feeling everything all of those reflections are experiencing all at the same time. So as he's, his reflection is defending this gap and raining fire down here, and oh, that one just got taken out by a scorch cannon. He can feel that hit. He can feel the loss of that portion of consciousness, and he has to recover and keep the other ones going. And like, this is a lot that
draining.
he's doing here.
It's absolutely draining. I don't know that he could have done this anywhere else. Like the power that he has here, I think he needs to be that close to a light source, and that particular light source being the Traveler. Like I don't know that he could do this just out. I know he does it on Mercury, but
yeah,
I don't have an excuse for that.
I think Osiris just
he's just that
powerful.
Dude, there's no fucking way.
I think he really is.
There's no way. I know Ikora is that, but well, they both cheat. They've got to be that powerful. Maybe he is that powerful. I don't know. To me, in my mind, I don't think he could have done this in any other spot in the universe. Again, because they're that close to the Traveler, he's that close to a direct light source. Like, I don't know, and light source in the terms of like light the power, not like hey, I flipped on the sun and now I have a light
Right,
source.
yeah.
Because then if it's light source, hell, he's on Mercury. That's the closest you're going to get to a light source without burning the hell up.
Right. But because he has this very unique perspective of he can literally see and experience the entire battlefield. He knows the battles they're winning, but he's also seeing the bodies of
Yeah.
the casualties, and really internalizing the like, if it's not this time, it'll be another. Like eventually the city will fail. That there are so many enemies out there that even if we push back this one, there's another one we don't even know about yet. Like he still has this mindset of like this isn't enough. And this he almost has the thinking of like this will never be enough.
Yeah, that's just the pessimist in him.
Yeah.
I can relate.
But I think it's important to note where his head is at because it informs a lot of his future decisions. But so we are going to do one more reading for this episode, and conclude this kind of portion where we're talking about the Battle of Six Fronts, with the chapter 10 of The Pigeon and the Phoenix, which is entitled War Stories. And this is the communication channel between the various fire team members that were out defending the city, as the fallen have now fallen back and they can claim victory over the Battle of Six Fronts. And it goes like this. Comms frequency no longer jammed. Reestablishing. Hello, Opcom. Welcome to... This is Shax. The enemy is in full retreat. The northern walls stand. I am needed. Shax. Hello. Western fronts are clear. This is Saint 14. Amazing. Then we march on the south. The fallen southern approach is broken. The city holds. Silence hangs for a moment. They thought they were going to crash in here and kill all of us. Yes. Yes, they did. All fire teams are accounted for. No casualties. Thanks to you and my friend Elric. You should have seen her. She saved 8 little lights, charged dozens of fallen. Lightning bullets, it was quite impressive. You're too kind. It was an honor to fight by your side. Dozens, you say? I'm impressed, Saint. How many deaths did your charge cost you? I did not die. Elric provided wonderful covering fire. I don't believe you. Is that because you did die, Shax? I heard the fallen broke your horn. Where did you hear that? I can vouch for Saint. We didn't die. Well, if only we could all be more like you, Saint. As I said, I had excellent cover. I don't know how many times I died. I witnessed the battle through the eyes of the city, balanced on wire. We are spread thin. My brother, you have fought hard. You should be proud. Without you, we would have been lost. Some still were, Saint. And that's the end of that chapter.
Oh, he is feeling it. But I'm feeling Shax.
Yeah.
More grenades, Guardians!
Yeah, I love Shax's.
They're in all caps.
I don't believe you.
Every single one of his one of his speeches is like all of his commentaries are in all caps. I don't believe you. I can vouch for saying we didn't die. Bullshit! You didn't throw enough grenades.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening here.
But with that, this is the ending of the Battle of Six Fronts, and also the ending of our first episode in this series.
Yeah. I'm excited for this series. There was a lot more to this than Myth and I realized. So yeah, I'm excited for this series. All right. Well, let's. Do we have any shout outs?
No shout outs tonight, but that's all right. I'll just say if you liked what you heard, it is a big help if you leave a review on your platform of choice. If you feel strongly enough that you want to and you can, leave a text review. We always enjoy those. Otherwise, you can reach out to us on Twitter at Myths and Stories, Z instead of an S, and you may hear yourself as a future shout out.
Well, I'm going to share one point then. We're at almost 250,000 downloads.
Yes.
Like December of last year, we were at 70,000, and we were amazed at that. We were happy last December. So 10 months ago from the point of this recording, that if we were going to hit 50,000, and we ended up hitting 70. And so from December to now, in 10 months, we've gone up to 250,000 downloads. And holy effing shit. My only thank you is to all of you guys out there.
Yeah.
We only keep doing this because everyone keeps listening. And so, as I've told Myth many times, I'll just keep talking until somebody tells me to shut the hell up. So, yeah, Myth and I are going to keep at this, and we're very appreciative of everyone out there that keeps tuning in every week and listening for our stories on your rides to work, on your work days. It still amazes me that somebody would rather listen to Myth and myself than do their work. But I mean, understandable. I get it. Like, yeah, I'd rather listen to Myth all day. Especially his wonderful accents too. His Elixni is spot on. Ain't no Elixni out there gonna refute us on it. I swear, if we get one random Bungie employee that's been like, okay, well, actually, the way it's pronounced is with a hard, like the back of the throat, like that's what. Thanks.
You know what?
Thanks,
if that did happen, it would totally make my day.
Shit our pants anyway. We wouldn't care. We'd be like, yep, you're right. All right. Well, anything else then, Myth?
No, that's it.
All righty. Well, then from all of us lore daddies to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.